Greetings, everyone. Ken McAuliffe, Jazz Vinyl Lover, back again. I thought it'd be fun to detail some of the records I bought up in upstate New York this past week. I stayed in this wonderful little town called Hudson that had one of the longest main streets I've ever seen in a little upstate New York town, and full of antique shops, which says to me there's a lot of money in that town. And I even found in the back of one of the antique shops was a little record store where I found some really cool records. I also went to Troy, New York, Albany, Catskill, and each one of these towns has their own little record stores with varying degrees of worth. The worst store, I'll go from bottom to top, was a store called Last Vestige in Albany. The store was filthy. There were no lights. The playing gear, the playback gear was filthy and beat up. It was maybe one of the worst record stores I've ever seen. Their jazz selection in the back was a bunch of shit. But in Catskill, I found an amazing store, Rocket Number 9 Records. Clean records, great playback, good prices, rare records. I found a Gene Ammons record there. Rocket Records, where else did I find great records? Jeez, I can't remember the names of all the stores. I'll list them in the comments if anybody's going upstate New York. But it's really great to see these really great little stores in little towns. And most of these stores were full of people when I was there. Anyway, I just want to talk about some of these records as to why I bought them. Jimmy Cleveland, a great trombone player. This is on Mercury. And just a great sort of trad session. Charts by the great Ernie Wilkins. What did I pay for this? The price is not on this one. The other side of the universe, the Norwegian tenor saxophonist, or might be alto saxophonist, Jan Garbarek, with one of my favorite guitar players, Terje Ripdahl. Esoteric Circle, George Russell presents. I actually think this may have come out as a George Russell record at some point, with the great John Christensen on drums. I didn't pay much for this, I took the label off. But there's a lot of great stuff on this. I think it's Heiress to Freedom. Anyway, great record. I'll buy anything with John Christensen on it. Similar lines, Open Space and MPS Records collection. MPS, the record label out of the Black Forest in Germany, who put out so many great records, and who has been reissuing all their records digitally for the last 2 years, just in digital downloads. Another label, this is actually the BASF version, which I think was a little bit later, but still MPS. I think any record on MPS is great. Great players. The recently reissued, or never out before, actually, Bill Evans' record from the Black Forest that never came out, with Eddie Gomez and Jack DeJohnette, one of the best records of a Record Store Day a couple of years back. But this has the Downbeat Poll Winners in Europe. This is a group: Karen Krog, John Sermon, Albert Mangelsdorf, Francie Boland, Nils Henning Orsted Peterson, and Daniel Umair. What a great record. I haven't spun this yet, but I'm excited to. I paid $20 for this record. It seemed to be in mint shape. I got a couple Charlie Parker records on Verve. The Verve records are hit and miss for me. I have to find the ones where he's playing with a small quartet. Some of the strings records are okay, but this is a solid one. Charlie Parker and his orchestra on Verve, $20. Whenever I pick up these audio test records, I just get a kick out of them. Probably because I write for Stereophile. $12. A Japanese record, extremely well recorded. Has one side is individual instruments, the other side is orchestra. A beautiful recording. Artistic and sonic excellence make this a Strandar disc selection, Audio Technica from the 70s. Another Charlie Parker, a great one on Verve, Night and Day. This is a must-have as far as I'm concerned for Charlie Parker records. I paid $20 for this. Verve Clef. Not sure if this is the yellow label. No, this is the black label. The yellow label is the original, I believe. This is a guitar player I'm not that familiar with. Gene Bertoncini with Michael Moore. I bought this at a store in Catskill, I believe, where they had a bunch of great records. They had a bunch of amazing blue-back classical records. $8 a piece, the cheapest I've ever seen them. Those beautiful London and Decca recordings. Anyway, Gene Bertoncini with Michael Moore, great bass player, and they really kill on this record. Just duo. But what an exciting record this is. $10. An original Actuel with Grasham Mancour. The Actuel records, mostly free jazz, kind of hit and miss, but I think, and they've been reissued. The reissues aren't that great. They've reissued some Don Cherry records. This was an original. You can see all that. Who's the band? Dave Burrell piano, Anders Sorrell drums. That's probably why I bought it, Anders Sorrell drums. A great lineup from 1969. Those are always worth finding. And then I wanted to fill a hole with an art ensemble of Chicago record I didn't have, with the great Don Moye on drums, ECM. A Black Lion reissue of what is probably an MPS release. Carmen McRae with the Kenny Clark, Francie Boland Big Band, November Girl. To me, Carmen McRae, one of the greatest jazz singers of all time and one of the most forgotten jazz singers of all time. On a really, really good day, I think Diana Krall sounds like a drunken Carmen McRae. I have a couple of versions of this, but I bought it anyway because it's just such a great record. Eddie Lockjaw Davis Cookbook with Shirley Scott Drummond, Prestige 7-141. I paid $30 for it. Maybe a little high, but it's an original Fireworks deep groove pressing. So, you know, you can't go wrong with that. I paid the most for this. A mint pressing of Gene Ammons Boss Tenor. Original pressing, beautiful condition, had a one scratch, so he lowered it from 80 to 70 bucks. I bought this at Spike's Record Rack. That's the name of the store. I think in Troy, I forget where, but the guy was extremely knowledgeable in the store. They had a bunch of great records. He was a good dude. Michael Brecker's second record, not as good as his first, but still a great record, with Peter Erskine, Mike Stern, Michael Brecker, just a great, and you can find this really cheap. I paid $8 for that Michael Brecker record. I actually picked this record up. I'd left it at Art Dudley's house, Joe Turner. Great cover. Great Savoy recording, the great blues singer, Joe Turner, big band blues singer. She's kind of like, I'll buy most any Ella record on Verve because most of them are just great. I'd never seen this one before. Get Happy, Stereo Hi-Fi, $20 on Verve. I'd never seen it before. She's really at her peak for me on these, on all the Verve sessions she did, all the great Verve sessions. This is a strange group on Japo, which was a precursor to ECM. And I listened to it at the store, just an unusual jazz trio from Germany, maybe. 1978 Japo / ECM. It sort of sounds like you think it might, sort of free and a little intellectual, little chamber. I'm a drummer, so I always buy these weird compilation records. Really, this is a great record. It says the soul of jazz percussion. We've got Curtis Fuller, Booker Little, Donald Byrd, Philly Joe Jones, Paul Chambers, Pepper Adams on the strange label Warwick. How many records they put out, I cannot tell you. The great Wayne Marsh, for me, sort of in the Lee Konitz school, with a great band of Hank Jones on piano, George Mraz on bass, and the great Mel Lewis on drums, $15. Criss Cross, one of the great labels in jazz, not really a budget label, but a cheaper label, but the recordings are great. I think these are what Kenny Washington might call cash and carry sessions, but most of the stuff on Criss Cross is really well done, really well recorded, and stellar players. I've been looking for these two Cassandra Wilson records for years on JMT. You go to Discogs, these are $70 a piece. Her really, really early recordings, Point of View with Steve Coleman, Groucho Moncoeur III, Jean-Paul Borelli, Lana Plaxico, and Mark Johnson, and Blue Skies, $6. To me, Cassandra Wilson is the greatest contemporary jazz singer. I think Diane Reeves is really great too, but Cassandra Wilson just covers so much ground. She has so much weight. She's so connected to history. She's such a great interpreter. She's a great writer. She has a great band. I've seen her live a couple times. She kind of takes it easy, but her records are fantastic. She doesn't have the typical pretty, she's not, you got to sort of come up to her level. Because to me, she's a really serious artist. She's the real shit. And we don't have much of that these days. I found this Artie Shaw record, which is really, really a great record. Artie Shaw and his Gramercy 5. I paid $15 for this on Verve. A great David Stone Martin cover. And the dude was ahead of his time, shaving his head in probably the early, or rather the late 1950s. Roger, this is a very well recorded record. Roger Kellaway with Jim Hall on the Regina label. Roger Kellaway played piano on one of my favorite Sonny Rollins records, Alfie. And this is a surprisingly great record. I didn't expect it. A jazz portrait of Roger Kellaway. A jazz series designed to showcase the freshest, most dynamic talent in jazz. On Regina Records, another little small cast-off label. But just a wonderful pianist, cool artwork, in the pocket, great Jim Hall performances. Let me just pull out a few here that I really dig. I'll just leave you with this last Ray Eldridge and his Central Plaza Dixielanders, Swing Goes Dixie, another Verve record. This is a Verve label I hadn't seen before. I think it was their Dixieland offshoot or something. Down Home series. This is just Dixieland. The Verve records, as the Jazz Shepherd has said in his videos, kind of gets ignored and slagged. They're not the most forward-thinking label, but the records are all so in the pocket. The performances are so great, partially because everyone is such a master who they recorded. Stan Getz, Roy Eldridge, Ben Webster, Coleman Hawkins, the real masters in jazz, were recorded by Verve, and they're very relaxed sessions, but they're pretty well recorded, not as nearly as well recorded as like a Blue Note record, but there are some great Verve recordings. And then I thought I'd just talk briefly about what I consider to be the essential record supplies you need just to keep your daily record gear in tip-top shape. One thing everybody needs at all times is a level. You want to make sure your turntable is always perfectly level. Some turntables have, and that's just a regular carpenter's level, some turntables have built-in levels like the Thorns, or they have adjustable wheels or footers so you can level them. There's another, this came from, who did this come from? Anyway, it's a little small level, then another cheap level. Levels are cheap. You have to level your records. If you're not only is the record mistracking and you're not hearing the signal accurately, you're damaging your grooves in the long run and hence damaging your records. To me, the very best record brush, bar none, is the Hunt EDA Mark 6 brush. It's aluminum, has felt in the middle, a row of brushes on either side. You put it on the record. As the record goes, you kind of just do that motion and then lift the dirt off, the dust off. This is the best I've ever seen. So many cheap record brushes are just flimsy. The brushes aren't stiff enough to really collect anything. This thing, I've had it forever. It's very well made and it's cheap. It's like 30 bucks. Then I bought this Sleeve City goat hair brush, which I really love actually. The brushes are thick. It's like 2 rows of brushes. They're put together really well, solid. It's not quite as thorough as the Hunt EDA brush, but it does a very good job. And then cleaning your stylus. I forgot who makes this, but it's important as much as anything else to have a clean stylus. Clean your records, keep your stylus clean. The stylus will last longer, it'll sound better, your records will last longer. This is the Anzao Zero something or another. Anyway, you see it right there. It has a goop of goop there. It's like an inch dollop of dime-sized goop. And I've heard people say varying things. Some people disagree. I just hold it under the tone arm, the stylus, and just drop it in there gently a couple times, and you can see it. It deposits the dirt right on it. You have to be very gentle with it, though, because you don't want to screw up your cartridge. Alternately, you can buy something for 10 bucks called Moon Gel at any Guitar Center. This is what drummers use to dampen their drum heads. There's 4 layers of the stuff. It's essentially the same as that. And maybe even a little easier to use. I just take the tone arm and gently kind of place the needle a couple times, and it deposits on there and it's clean as a whistle. Then finally, everybody needs a good turntable light so you can see what the heck you're doing. I bought this handy dandy light at IKEA for I think 17 bucks. The light portion rotates, the arm rotates, it's got the little dealie there, a nice long cable. You gotta see what you're doing. Alright, thanks for checking in. Ken McCall, the Jazz Vinyl Lover, signing off. Thanks for watching my videos. Thanks for reading my stories in stereophile and downbeat and jazz times of Modern Drummer. And if you'd like, come by and check out our Jazz Vinyl group, Jazz Vinyl Lovers, at Facebook, where people get into all kind of trouble, me the most. I'm the administrator who trolls his own group. That's what I'm known for. Anyway, thanks for checking in. Have a great day.